The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Once people found out that you were going to be here, saw who you were, what you were about, they're coming here right and left because this is a no-nonsense show. We want to get the country back. We've taken into our own hands these sheriff kids, trying to get them into the hands of our politicians so they can take a look at this and at least run an investigation. And we make no claim as to where Obama was born, who his parents are, or where his allegiance are. We just claim that there's phony forged documents and a whole lot of phony forged documents. Mark, how did you get into this birth certificate controversy?
Well, you know, through the media. I mean, I believe that this started back in 2007. Now, there is a theory that what had occurred back then was that in the 2008 race, when Hillary Clinton was contesting the race with Obama for the Democratic nomination, that what had happened was the Clintons had looked at the background of Mr. Obama, and there were many areas that were suspect. One area was the attendance at the Reverend Wright Church. That had come about. But also, the Clintons are very smart people, and people need to understand that they know what was occurring in that race. And I think that what had happened was there was a very good friend, and I don't have the name, but there was a good friend of the Clintons that was murdered, okay, right about this time. And after that happened, Bill Clinton basically backed off from this. And I think that the theory is that there were possible threats upon his family. So at that time, it stopped. Basically, it stopped at that point. But then once Obama was elected, he had won the nomination, was elected in 2008, then this still carried on. This wasn't going to go away because there were other people, other researchers looking at this. So that leads us to right now. And
let me jump in there for 1 minute, Mark. You
okay.
are absolutely right about the timeline and what you just said. I've had Miss Bettina Viviano on the show, and you can go in my archives. I've had her on. She was the Hollywood producer that was hired by Hillary Clinton, the Clinton campaign, to promote Hillary during that time you just discussed. Around the time of the murder, there were threats being made towards the Clintons because Hillary really is the first birther. She was in a telephone conference call, and this is from her own words. You can go listen to the show. I had her on about 2 months ago, where Bill said that the threats started coming towards him, and he can handle it, and then Hillary. But when they threatened the life of the daughter, Chelsea Clinton, on the telephone conference call, he said to lay off the entire birth certificate identification issue. Everybody had to drop it right then and there. So you're exactly right about that. It did start in 2007. We asked for identification. They came up with a certificate of live birth, small little piece of paper with not enough items on there to pass any kind of sniff test. And the controversy just went on and on and on. And, you know, no college records, not even to today. I don't know why he would not release a college record. So what if you got a B or a B minus? What's the difference? He has 4 different aliases. He lived in this country. He was in that country. He went back to this country. He took off for Pakistan, came back with a different name. But you're right about the timeline, Mark, and I wanted to let you know about Miss Viviano. Continue. You're on a roll there. Go ahead.
Right, and I think this, if you look at the context in the year in 2007, this was really kind of the genesis of this. This was really the beginning of the investigation. You know, if you're in a presidential campaign, I don't think people are naive to think that the Clintons would have gone into that campaign without investigating their major opponent. You always do that in a campaign. You always investigate who you're running against. You always look at that. And to think that they didn't look at this issue, you know, they did look at this issue. They had to have, because this was a presidential election. I mean, this is a big election. So, you know, from that point, we have to look at where we're at right now. And the fact that we only have a copy, researchers know that you cannot authenticate a birth certificate or any type of document through a copy. It cannot be done, because the copy is just that, a copy. So what I would like to see, I think this is the way that this can be resolved, is that why not bring an international team to Hawaii and look at the original long-form birth certificate, if it exists.
I agree. Mark, I mailed you a sheriff's kit. Were you aware of the information, and have you gone over the contents of the sheriff's kit, and what's your opinion about it?
Yes, I've looked through the report by the Michael Zullo, and these, you know, when you look at the evidence based on the birth certificate, when you look at what they've compiled, I believe that our government, the representatives, they need to take a look at this, because it's pretty solid evidence that we may have a fraud here as far as that birth certificate. So if there is enough evidence, which it appears there is, this was an independent investigation set in Maricopa County. If we have an investigation like this, then let's take it further. Let's get to the truth. I mean, no one right now can say that they know for sure. We need to be able to look at the original birth certificate. And until we do that, we cannot determine whether this is real or not, this copy that was offered by the White House.
I agree, and it was proven by the Sheriff's Department to be layered and layered and layered upon layer. Plus, I'm going to have Doug on next Monday. He's going to show about typesetting and different spaces between typesetting. I'd like to respond to my chat room. I have a very large audience in the chat room. Okay, Dr. Ken, it seems like you're behaving tonight, Dr. Ken. He's asking me, what's the big deal about college transcripts? They're not required to hold the office of the presidency. That's correct. But Dr. Ken, wouldn't it be nice if I asked to see a college transcript, to see some verification that you did attend that college during that time, to see that you did not obtain it through a foreign student loan? There's been some speculation about possibly Obama not being a citizen of the United States and applied for foreign aid. Wouldn't it be nice? I don't think I'm asking for anything too much. Mr. McFarland, if I asked you for your college records, you're running for the office of governor, would you release them?
Yes, I would.
It's not a big thing, Dr. Ken, okay? It's not a big thing for the president to release his records. If he got a B, if he got a C+, what's the big deal? Just get it over. What are you hiding? Occidental College, nobody's seen him at Columbia University, Harvard University, all of a sudden he pops up there. It's not a big thing. So I hope that I am addressing it, and please behave. We've thrown him out of the chat room several times before. Okay, Mark, so now that's great, and I have to give you a lot of credit because a lot of people, when they hear about the controversy, they can't go back to 2007 like you just did, where this whole thing started. And, you know, we had the sheriff's kits based on the birth certificate that was posted on the White House website. It also includes the Selective Service Registration Card. Are you aware of that being in the kit, too?
Yes, where the Selective Service Card, where it appears that Mr. Obama is the only one that only has a 2-digit date on his, that it would have been back in 1980, but they had researched it and they had found that those stamps all had 4 digits. It would have stated 1980. But on his, it's just 80.
Correct. And that is a big problem. Plus, the 80 is offset a little bit if you watch the video. And don't forget, the 8 is upside down. And that leads to the theory that it came from a 2008 FICA stamp. You know, Mark, and we're going to get back into your candidacy because I have a lot of people tonight. I have most of my staff listening. They want to get behind your back. They want to help you as much as they can. Mark, there is everywhere we turn with Obama, and we've made no speculation, once again, where he was born. We just want an investigation, which is exactly what you said a little while ago. We just want someone in authority in Congress to look at this. Everywhere we turn, it's an accident. It's a mistake. It's a misstep. It's a misprint. We're crazy. We don't know what we're talking about. There was a publication by Acton and Deisto of a book that Obama was publishing. And do you remember that controversy? They put in the book that he was born in Kenya?
Yes.
And only in 2007, and only after people started asking questions about the president, which every American has the right to do, it's running for office, we want to know who you are and what you are, did the publishing company all of a sudden say, we made a mistake. From 1991 to 2007, there's been many people published in that book, including, I'll give you Ralph Nader, I'll get an example, Ralph Nader, Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill. They had their information correct, absolutely correct, and there was no mistake. It's always an error or two. Mark, I'm going to play an audio clip. I don't know if you've heard this. I haven't played it for a while. I want to jump right into this. I want to keep the show moving here. It's President Obama himself, and there's a video that goes along with it. It's 2 minutes and 43 seconds, so I'm going to ask everybody's patience just to listen to the clip very carefully, and I'll go over it again.
Okay.
Something happened in Birmingham that sent out what Bobby Kennedy called and suddenly believed that maybe a black man in this world had a chance. And what happened in Selma, Alabama and Birmingham also stirred the conscience of the nation. And it worried folks in the White House who said, you know, we're battling communism. How are we going to win the hearts and minds all across the world if right here in our own country, John, we're not observing the ideals that are set forth in our Constitution? We might be accused of being hypocrites. So the Kennedys decided we're going to do an airlift. We're going to go out to Africa. And we're going to start bringing young Africans over to this country and give them scholarships to study so that they can learn what a wonderful country America is. And this young man named Barack Obama got one of those tickets and came over to this country. And he met this woman whose great-great-great-great-grandfather had owned slaves. But she had a different idea. There's some good craziness going on because they looked at each other and they decided, we know that in the world as it has been, it might not be possible for us to get together and have a child. But something stirred across the country because of what happened in Selma, Alabama, because some folks are willing to march across a bridge. And so they got together and Barack Obama Jr. was born. So don't tell me I don't have a claim on Selma, Alabama. Don't tell me I'm not coming home when I come to Selma, Alabama. I'm here because somebody must for free. I'm here because y'all sacrificed for me. I stand on the shoulders of God.
Okay. I played the entire clip, before and after the most important part. What we just heard, Mark, is Obama saying he was born because his parents met during the march in Selma, Alabama. Is that what you got out of it?
Yes.
I have the date for Selma, Alabama march. Do you want to take a guess at it?
No, go ahead.
Well after 1961, his purported birth. It was March the 25th, 1965. March 25th. It was part of that 5-day march from Birmingham, and that's when they marched over the bridge in Selma. I think that was the end of the march. So it doesn't add up. Whether he was bragging or not, or whether this is the truth, here we go again. Obama's saying he was here because his parents met on a march in Selma, Alabama. It doesn't. Here's another one. You're a private investigator. Have I gone beyond any sort of reasonable doubt to start asking questions, or a whole lot of questions?
Well, yeah. These are questions that will come into play. But there's always a way that someone can say, look, you're reaching on this. The hard evidence here is a original birth certificate. That's the hard evidence. This kind of reminds me of the Kennedy assassination. I have researched the Kennedy assassination, and this reminds me of that because when Kennedy was killed in 1963, and they come out with the Warren Report, which was one of the greatest fictions ever placed upon the American people. The official narrative was we had a lone nut assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, shoot the president. Well, what happened right after that, 2-3 years after that, is that researchers started looking at this and they said, this doesn't make any sense. There's too much evidence pointing towards a conspiracy. And so it wasn't until the middle 1970s under the Carter administration when the Select Committee on Assassinations, they revisited this and they reinvestigated it, and their conclusion was what I call a limited hangout. In a sense, a limited hangout is when they have to admit to something, but they don't really admit to all of it. And what the government did was they said that most probably the assassination was a conspiracy, and that there was a second shooter, but that shooter missed, which wasn't true. But they said that most likely who perpetuated this was organized crime. Now, that is true, that this was organized crime that had perpetuated this assassination and were behind it. So this reminds me, this whole idea about this birth certificate is that, look, we need to do something now It's been 50 years on the Kennedy assassination, and they are still hiding behind that. We need to look at this now. The government, the legislature, the U.S. legislature has to act upon this. Because if they don't act upon this, I'm afraid that what will happen is they will bury it.
I think you're right. I think as time goes on, it's not going to, people will forget. You hit it on the head when you started out with the 2007 narrative. I have to give you a lot of credit. Mark, I have on hold Sharon Rondeau. She's been a frequent guest to my show. She's actually hosted my show on her own. She is the editor of the online newspaper, the Post and Email, a great publication. There's a link in my site on the upper right-hand side. She wants to ask you questions. She's going to get into the candidacy part, and we're going to get into that later on, because my switchboard is on fire right now with so many people wanting to ask you questions. I guess they want to find out if you're the man for the job. Before I bring Sharon on, I want to address something that's going on in the chat room. And doing some research about you, you said the same exact thing that I had said, and it was probably a slip of the tongue because it's politically correct today. The first thing that I saw on Obama's birth certificate when it was released on the White House website was the race of his father as being African. And speaking so much about it, I have said sometimes African American because of politically correct times today. I'm mistaken. I'm saying it on the air right now. We all know what I meant. Even if I say African American, it doesn't matter. It was not the term in 1961. You can show me all the publications and guide and handbooks you want to show me what it was supposed to be listed as. It was Negro. It was not anything other than Negro in 1961. We didn't call black people Africans back then, even if you came from Africa. I was born well before 1961. Today it's African American. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I agree. You know, you have to look at the context of that time. You know, I was born in 1964, but I do know the historical perspective on this, and I do know that the president at that time, Mr. Kennedy, was referring to Negro. He used the term Negro, the president of the United States at that time. So
not only that, Mark, but we have in our possession 2 birth certificates. We didn't just get one from the same year, right around the same time frame. I believe one is after August of 61 and one is before. And the race of the father is listed as Negro, not African, Negro. I just wanted to clear that up because people in the chat room right now are challenging me. I guess they must have heard you say African American in the past there.
When I was,
and I apologize.
Yes, when I was on the program, I did say African American, and I did know that it was they had used this term African. So, you know, if you misspeak in any way, they want to try to turn it upon you that you didn't know what was on the birth certificate. That's not the issue. The issue is that that term was not used at that time, like you said.
And that's correct. That's correct. Okay, Mark, hold on. Tighten your belt a little bit. We're going to have Sharon come on the air and ask you some questions. She already posted an article today about an upcoming interview. And with that, I am going to bring the sometimes co-host, always a guest on the show. Sharon, you're on the air with Mark McFarland.
Hi, Mike, and hi, Mark. Nice to meet you.
Good hearing from you.
Great to speak with you. Mike, thanks for taking my call here and giving me a few moments because I know you have a lot of people who also want to ask questions, so I'll be brief. Just to let you know, Mark, I do run an electronic newspaper called the Post and Email, which Mike had said. Because I'm a newspaper and I'm trying to run it in the style of old-style newspapers, I don't endorse any candidates for office. Republican, Democrat, Independent, doesn't matter, and I go after all of them. If I see an inconsistency or a lie or whatever, I out them. It doesn't matter what they have after their name. So with that said, I'd like to concentrate a little bit on the birth certificate issue, which I know Mike has been covering with you for maybe these last 20 minutes or so. The Post and Email has been one of the few papers, maybe only one or two or three, that have covered this controversy from the beginning. And when I say the beginning, we were founded in August of 2009. So we were not there, for instance, when Mike started his website and began asking questions. But we did send a researcher to Hawaii. And a private person helped to fund that some years ago. It was the summer of 2010. And she made some very interesting observations on which she reported. But we've been on this thing and reporting on it when no one else will, no one in the media. And what I'd like to ask you is, as you go forward with your campaign for governor of Michigan for 2014, what would you do, if anything, I'm not making any assumptions, but what would you do to bring this issue to the forefront so that at least Michigan constituents or, perhaps future constituents, hopeful constituents, would find out that there is this big doubt as to where Obama was born, what his origins are, that the cold case posse has determined beyond any reasonable doubt that the short form, long form birth certificates are computer generated forgeries, to use their quote, as well as the Selective Service Administration. And we've got someone, that the same person, sitting there in the White House, possibly having committed some very, very serious crimes, along with criminal co-conspirators. So I'd like to know what you would do to bring this out into the open.
Well, right now, my status, I am a licensed private investigator, and under the statute in Michigan, like in most states, this statute covers treason against the United States. So right now, I would have the ability to look at this and investigate this and go further of bringing this to the U.S. legislature and basically showing them my results, the same as the Maricopa investigation. So, but as running for governor, if I were to win this race and become governor, I would use any possible way to bring this to the forefront and to basically get to the truth. Because, like Mike said, we're not making any type of claims on what is occurring with this birth certificate. We just want to get to the truth. Now, I'm running for governor of Michigan. I don't have to show my birth certificate because you don't have to be a U.S. citizen to run for governor of a state. But just for argument purposes, I would be willing to bring in independent people to the state of Michigan, and they could look at my long-form birth certificate to prove that I was born in Michigan, born in the U.S. And so I think that all we're asking is that perhaps maybe the president should invite an international team to Hawaii to inspect the original, and then we could lay this to rest. That would be the easiest way for the president to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt, and to basically put this issue to rest. And he's a little bit past midterm in his presidency. He's going on to his sixth year. So I think this would be the best for the country if he were to do that. We can't authenticate a copy. Any expert will tell you that you cannot look at a copy of a document and you can't authenticate it. There's no way you can. And this copy is suspect because the White House had put this background, this green background, on the back. And this should just appear as a white copy. Because I was born in 1964, and my birth certificate is quite similar to the one that he is proposing that is his. simply just a white copy, typewritten. So I just don't see the need for that background, but I believe that background is utilized in this case to show there's many layering upon that background. So they're using that background. The theory is to layer it so you can't see the inconsistencies, but they are there. It's obvious that they're there.
Well, thank you for that very thoughtful response. Now, I have two questions that came out of what you just said. Did you mean to say that you don't need to be a U.S. citizen to run for governor of Michigan? Did you mean perhaps natural-born citizen?
Right. You wouldn't. There's in any office in the U.S. I believe it's only the presidency that is stating that you must be born in the U.S.
Well, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5 says no person except a natural-born citizen. That is exclusively for the presidency. I believe, now I haven't looked at Michigan statutes and I don't live in that wonderful state, but I would think that the Michigan Constitution would require a candidate for governor or any office to be a U.S. citizen. I would expect that would be the case.
Well, a U.S. citizen, it doesn't mean that you would have had to have been born here.
Correct. You could be naturalized.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that's what I'm stating. I'm just stating that in my case, that is not a requirement to run for governor.
Right.
The requirements here are to be registered for the last 4 years and to be 30 years of age.
I see. Okay. That answers that. Thank you. And then regarding your private investigatory background, I was very interested when I saw that on your website earlier today when I knew that I would be calling in. Have you actually done work in private investigation having to do with documents and forensics and forgeries and things? Is that part of your training or experience?
No, it isn't. I'm basing what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a copy of that certificate of live birth that was placed on the site by Washington, and what I am basing this on is the Maricopa investigation.
Sure.
This was a team of forensic investigators who looked at this, and from based on my background and based on looking at this, an investigator has to look at evidence gathered, and you have to try to decipher what you know and what you don't know. And what we do know is there are too many discrepancies with this copy. I mean, we can't even authenticate anything from this copy. You can't do it from a copy. Like I said, the ideal situation here, and it's the only way that we're going to prove this, is for, I believe, an international team to go to Hawaii, to the state of Hawaii, and look at an original. And if that original is not there, then we know there's a problem.
Yeah, and of course the problem is Hawaii claims that because of privacy laws, and I've read the laws extensively, they say that you cannot show a birth certificate, a vital record, a death certificate, anything to anyone without a, quote, direct and tangible interest in the record without written permission from the record holder, which in this case would be Barack Obama. So this has stonewalled so many people. In fact, I know it was made public that it stonewalled the cold case posse. When they went to Hawaii, they were just basically put off by Jill Nagamini, who's the Deputy Attorney General in Hawaii, and they were very evasive, and they just said, you can't see anything because he hasn't signed a release, you don't have a direct and tangible interest in the record. We don't know what Hawaii has in its records. We do know that the numbering seems to be off. I know Doug Vogt has reported on that, and our researcher reported the same thing, that the sequencing of numbers just did not match. And there's a theory that perhaps the birth certificate number from a little girl who lived less than a day, Virginia Tsunohara, was actually stolen and basically reassigned. Because I know another investigator had requested basically just a verification of this deceased child. And if they're deceased, they're supposed to be able to release it. And this investigator was told, we have nothing on this child. And then, lo and behold, they do have something, because a couple of years later, her brother asked for the long-form birth certificate, Duncan Tsunohara, and he was refused, and he took it to court. And I think there was supposed to be an appeal, but he was certainly refused. They said, nope, the health department doesn't have to give you a copy of her long form or even show you the original or anything. They just gave him a short form. And regarding what you said about the background of Obama's purported long-form birth certificate, there are several versions of that floating around. There is a case right now with the Alabama Supreme Court, and it's been there for quite a few months now, I think since last summer. And every so often I call on a Friday because they make their decisions, and there hasn't been a decision that I know of. But there are several versions of that birth certificate with different backgrounds, and I would think that right there, that would tell the world that this thing is absolutely not authentic. And what I'm wondering is, and perhaps your idea would work if international people went to Hawaii, but they are just absolutely locked down about not releasing any information because it would violate state law, privacy law, this and that. So no one's been able to get at Obama's records, and meanwhile the country is flailing here, I think. I don't think there's too much argument there. But he could be getting away with the biggest heist in American history, and yet he continues on day by day with his agenda. So I know at the hearing on Tuesday, the Judiciary Committee hearing, there was at least one person who said, Jonathan Turley, who said that this is a constitutional crisis, not even discussing the birth certificate, but discussing Obama's overreach. Imagine if we find out that he is a citizen of a foreign country, was never naturalized, or has other barriers to being a, quote, natural-born citizen. Then everything he signed, I would think, would be null and void. But what we want to do, as you said, is get to the truth and find out who is this man and what has he been hiding so very prodigiously, along with perhaps many criminal co-conspirators.
Right. I make no judgments about the president as far as his policies. I want to refrain from talking about any of his policies because what the point is, I think like I said, the only answer is to verify this independently of the White House in an international team to look at this. And, talking about the privacy laws, when you look at the fact that I believe that Mr. Obama has already waived some of those privacy, the privacy areas, because when they presented this on the internet site, he is placing that information on there. So what I would like to ask the officials in Hawaii is, what type of privacy are we violating here? Because this is a copy of the original. So what type of privacy are we trying to protect? There really is no privacy because now he has presented the copy. But a copy means nothing to when you need to authenticate something.
Yes, I wonder why on April 27th, 2011, he didn't simply hold up a paper and say, here's the original, and have the camera zoom in, show the raised seal, the official registrar's stamp, all of that, especially the raised seal, But no, it was all just talk, and it was an image posted on the White House website. And most Americans, I guess, at that time were still fairly gullible. I don't know if they still are, but and I certainly agree with you. And this was not meant to be a discussion about Obama's policies at all, but it would just be an enormous, I guess, revelation if we were to find definitely that he is, let's say the birth in Hawaii story is not true. I know Carl Gallup did his show this evening, and I caught the second hour. And one of the things he announced right off the bat was, I can tell you there's no birth certificate in Hawaii. And he's been privy to some information that the Cold Case Posse has confirmed among itself anyway. And he said that he's absolutely, he says, I can tell you for sure there's no birth certificate, there's no Hawaiian birth certificate was what he said, and that's what I made into tonight's story. So we all wonder what he's been hiding, and you know, other people have agreed with you that he has waived his right to privacy. I know Attorney Orly Tates said that many times, that he's already put something out there, and one would not see why privacy laws would apply to him now, but Hawaii says that they do, and they won't release anything. So we are wondering what it is he doesn't want out there.
You know, I think that politically it would be advantageous for him to invite an international team and to look at this, because when you look at his ratings are very low. His approval ratings are very low. And if he were to prove this within the international community, then it would certainly put this story to rest. And then they could say to all the conspiracy theorists, see, you were wrong. But until he does that, there will always be this suspect of this. And, you know, wherever there's smoke, there's fire. And there's a problem here. And I think that he's the only one that could open this up. And if he doesn't, I think he runs that risk that the U.S. government will. That the U.S. government, the legislature, the U.S. legislature will open this up.
It just could be that he's not opening this up because, Mark, there may not be anything there to open up to. Go ahead, Sharon. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'll make this my last question. Thank you. Mark, do you believe that Congress is going to investigate? Do you have any indication? Have you heard anything that they might do something like what you described?
No, I just think that under the political climate, based on what is occurring in the nation, that politically this may be an area that the other party may look at, and until the president could put this to rest, but they may force his hand, and I think they should. Whether they're going to, I don't know, but I think that they have a duty to do this. They have a duty to investigate this.
All right. Thank you so much. It was very good speaking with you.
Thank you.
Well, Sharon, thank you. Those were some great questions. I appreciate it, Sharon.
Thank you.
Okay, that was Sharon Rondeau from the Post and Email. If you go to where'sobama's.com, upper right-hand side, click on it. It is a paid subscription, but it looks just like a real old-time newspaper.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.